All right. Hello,
I get like
hello. Thank you to
exhausting.
everyone who is watching the replay. Welcome. Welcome to an evening, a morning, an afternoon
We have
discussion.
all the times.
Yes, we are from the west coast of the United States to Central Europe, so we got it covered. We're here to talk about Cultish, this sensation, dare we say? There. All right. Hello. Hi, hi, hi. Ashley Love. Hi. Hey. Hey. Oh, my fave.
Best
Hey.
username on the internet.
I'm gonna say it every time. It's great.
Yeah.
I love
It
it.
really is.
If any of you read it in the chat, definitely let me know. Oh, there she is. Oh, 1 a.m. You saw
Hello.
my name. Wow. Hi, Beth. I think this was one of the buzziest, in my opinion, nonfictions last year. Definitely in the top. Fabulous there. Listen to it. Just finished. Perfect. So your mind is fresh. You want to come on here?
I'll send you a link.
Me too.
Is that
That's
when
when
we
I
read it?
The audio. I listened to the audio too. 1 hour into it. So starting while people are, we're just gonna give it a 4, but a 3.
Mhm.
Listen to it as well. We can introduce yourselves. You want to plug any kind of social media, whatever you have, whatever about you, and then what did you rate the book, Alyssa?
Oh crap, I'm in that seat. Hi, I'm Alyssa, Nerdy Nurse Reads, on YouTube and everywhere else. I also have a podcast called TBR Lowdown that I do with my friend Naomi. And I gave this 3 stars because I don't know, like it was fine. Like it's like an introductory article to the world of cults and how we're all in one.
I am Monet from Life is Monet, and I gave this 5 stars. I really liked it.
I am Mara from Books Like Whoa, and I gave this 4 stars because I really liked the content and I liked it as like a more formal version of a lot of the like TikTok and Twitter discourse I've seen around like cultishness. It was like, okay, this is like an actual argument about something that I think a lot of people have sort of observed in the culture. So I thought it was good.
I gave it the same as Alyssa. We buddy read it pretty much and had similar feelings. I gave it a 3, and because there was just more that I wanted from it. But I definitely wanted to have this chat day, especially hear from you two who have higher ratings and like what you got out of it. But I know that, I mean, it was one of those that I saw everywhere. I was like, ooh, I have to read it. And I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, let's give it up for whoever the cover designer is. 'Cause this
Yes.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely easy. I think it's a really great intro, just like to
It is an intro.
nonfiction.
hmm
Yeah.
Bonnie Leon Berman.
Missing
Good job,
something.
Bonnie.
Good job. Yeah, I read it in January and I lost some of it. It's not sticking with me as much as some other nonfiction. See, and I didn't know she had a podcast.
I didn't know that either.
which
Me either.
I'm intrigued
Oh, interesting.
to, but did find it most analytical. Is her podcast like about cults or cultish language?
She's a
Excellent.
linguist, so.
Yes. Excellent video. If you have not watched it, watch it. You should watch.
Sorry,
So
that's
before-
my dog. He's gonna make weird noises. He's like ancient. Just ignore him.
Yeah, a lot of four stars. So one thing I wanted to ask, because I think I had a different like expectation going in than what the book was, and I don't know if y'all did. So because when I heard about it, I didn't really like read the blurb, as I usually don't, but I heard that she was a linguist, and so I thought it was going to be more like academic, like a more of a deep dive into like language, because I haven't really read much about like language itself, and then kind of how the whatever of language. I don't even have the words. See, I needed something about language, plays its role into cult. And so even though I think she just has her bachelor's, and I don't want to say that in like, that's not like a downgrade, but it wasn't like a research, not just like a deeper, like a PhD kind of project. So I thought it was just going to be more academic, maybe more dense than it was. And it definitely is not. So I think that's something that kind of let me down. And I felt like some things I really wanted her to just go in. I'm like, oh yes. And she didn't spend as much time on. So that kind of was my expectation versus what I got out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think expectation was. I think I was just excited about talking about the language of cults, because usually when you read a cult book, it's focusing on one particular cult and how that one leader did these things and got people to believe in it. But her wide like array of even Starbucks and Beyonce and TikTok, she's like showing you how to pull these little linguistic threads and how it can start to formulate a cult. And I think I really enjoyed her delivery. Some of my favorite nonfictions, like Seven Fallen Feathers, the way that they tell the story is so engaging for anyone, even if you're not really a nonfiction reader. And so I think I'm always very excited to find a nonfiction that I feel like I could recommend at all levels, even if you're not really a nonfiction reader, because the writing is so engaging. So now finding out that she has a podcast, it makes sense, because she tells the story in a way that like she is not trying to lose you. And right when she starts to like kind of go off, I can see how you might want more information. But I think she's pulling it back in because she knows that like some people may not, that might be too much for them. So I think that she wanted to, I don't know how many books she's written. I think one other one. Maybe she's trying to like build her fan base before she starts doing all of the
a big long chunky one.
I'm looking forward to another book by her.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's approachable about this book is that it is kind of surface level. Like, I think that this would be a great, if you're interested in this topic and you're a little intimidated by nonfiction, like, I think that this is a good place to start. And I think I agree. I liked that it was taking something, well, and if you watch my channel, I've been very like mulling on the idea of like aesthetics in the last year or so, of like how we use surface level things to create more meaning than may actually be there. Also, this dog is the main character right now. She is like, excuse me. But I think that that's part of what I liked about it, is that it may be that it was feeding into something that I just am interested in and have been thinking about, which is like, a lot of these cults, there's not a lot of there, but what is there is this ability to like create a story and to use language that really resonates with people. Like, I mean, somebody mentioned Scientology earlier in the chat, which I'm very fascinated with, but like all of their use of words and like redefining words is so interesting to me. So it may be similar to what you were saying, Monet. I just am really interested in this topic. And I feel like I like that it's approachable in terms of being able to recommend something nonfiction to someone who may not be, the target recommendation I would give for like Fearing the Black Body, for instance, which is very academic and is great and very interesting, but like maybe a little bit intimidating to somebody who's not reading a lot of nonfiction. I don't know if that makes sense.
And she uses a lot of modern pop culture to do it. And like with American history, she could have went all the way back to Quakers, if we're being honest, but she stuck with names that we recognize, companies we recognize. It's very like modern pop culture.
Yeah.
I really liked, I enjoyed the book. I didn't dislike it in any way, which is why I gave it 3 stars. Like, it's fine. But like, that's my personal experience. Like, that's my personal rating with it. As a tool to introduce someone to the topic, I agree. It's a really great intro book for that. I obsessively watch anything I can about cults, and like, so for me, I'm walking in here and I'm like, oh yeah, but like I know that because I like binge watch X, Y, and Z. Like so that piece was missing from my experience. But if you didn't know anything, it's super approachable. They read kind of like 5 separate, almost like in-depth Pop Sugar articles. So they were very
that.
So like the modern girl or whatever could engage with. I don't know. Maybe it's the soul cycles making me feel like it's a.
Oh my gosh, the soul cycle. Yeah. And I felt this comment because, like, same, I think if you have read or watched or consumed a lot about cults, maybe you also didn't get as much from it, except like the language part is very new to me because, when you do watch stuff, it is about the cult. But I've also kind of heard of that in other documentaries. I don't know why I just stumbled on that word.
Let's see, what
But,
are you doing?
but yeah, great intro.
Did you feel like, I don't know, a fifth grader in a kindergarten class or something like that? Like everybody was just smaller than you?
I just was like, it's not like I didn't feel like above it or anything. I just was like, yes. And I mean, I feel like it's like watching true crime or anything or read about a serial killer or whatever. It's like, I'm not interested in hearing about it again. I was just hoping, I was like, okay, we're starting. And then you're going to go more in depth than maybe this little podcast that I listened to, or maybe this little, and something she did spend like more time on, like Jim Jones and other things. And then other things I was like, ooh, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was because I kind of have slipped from my mind. I did read it in January, but yeah.
I wanted it to unlock another door, and it didn't unlock any new doors.
That
makes sense.
Yeah. And I think somebody put this in the chat. To me, the part that
I love Fundy Fridays.
So good. As an ex-Fundy, I'm like, oh god, this is too real. But yeah, I would say the stuff that I wish that she had spent more time on was the relationship of cult-like language in non-cults, because I think that was the part that to me was like the most like bringing together ideas that I've seen kind of floating around, but doing it in like a focused way and kind of giving a full argument for it, as opposed to just sort of like, ooh, this is a really good TikTok, or that was a really interesting tweet. Like I liked having an actual essay kind of unpacking some of that. And I would love if she did a follow-up. I think that alone would merit like a full book of discussion.
I think from here, I would personally and recommend switching to an author who specializes in cults. If that makes any sense. Like if we were making this compilation of like understanding cults, this would be like the linguistic version. And then now I would switch to like someone who has studied a cult or went to school for cults, and like now we're diving in. So I don't even know what I would recommend to pair with this, but I'm gonna think about that.
Okay,
Steve Hassan.
Anything.
Yeah.
But someone, I don't know if I lost the comment. Well, yeah, I mean, there could be the Bayhive is, I don't
well, what about Nikki? Because that's a whole other.
Are you a Nikki fan?
I think I wish we would have explored a little bit how sometimes even the leaders like Beyonce and Nicki, whatever, can lose the control of their fan base really quickly.
There was, I saw a review that pointed this out, like they wished, and I agree, going into like fraternities, and they said like hate groups or I forgot what else, organized religion, and maybe that's more of a specialized thing, but there are just so many non-cult,
fraternities and sororities are a cult. Everything I did,
they're definitely cult-ish.
Everything I did definitely is wrong. It's just no. Like
I think that the title's good because instead of calling this understanding the language of cults, she calls it cultish, like things that look like a cult.
It's kind of
like aware. I want to know all the lingo.
I also want to more in depth, and this may be the next layer or another layer in her career of books that she writes, but more on what that difference between the people who end up in cults and those that don't. And because she touches on it a little bit, but because it's always, I think that's the question. Half the reason why we all sort of watch this is like, well, how did they get there? Or like, I would never, but like, would you? Because it's, if it's so in depth into our regular lives to the point of it like hitting Soul Cycle and our, Beyonce, how could we all not be potential cultish people. Like,
Well, really, it's like right place, right time. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what most cult experts talk about is like, it's not like dumb people getting into this.
No.
It's smart people who are just like at a moment in their life where the cult is meeting their needs. And maybe for most of us, Soul Cycle can meet our needs. We don't have to go the full Jim Jones route, but like,
I think it's
different place, different time.
community. It provides community and connections and like the sense of being inside of a bubble. And it just depends on what you want your bubble to look like. If you work out for mental health, or you just want to exhaust energy, and then now you have all these people that do it with you. And I think that we never want to cut ties with the community when we're included in it, and we get all the secret language and the secret jokes. Like we all just want to have our people. And so I think it starts with community.
We're all in a bookish cult.
And
we're
in a bookish cult.
You're 100% right.
and
Well, and some above that, about the suggestibility factor, like I think that would have been an interesting route for her to go. And I feel kind of bad because we're like, here's the book you should have written, but I mean, whatever. This is part of having a discussion.
This will be the next book you read.
You're
right.
The next book, but the suggestibility, and part of what I think some of the redefinition of common words does is it allows you to feel like you know what they're talking about, but like as you get drawn in, you find out the second layer of the meaning. So it's like, okay, you go into Scientology thinking reasonable means one thing, but like once you get in, you find out that reasonable actually is bad. Like it means that you are able to be persuaded through reason as opposed to just like adhering to what L. Ron Hubbard says. So like, but I think that could have been an interesting route of like, okay, they kind of like lure you in with these words, and then like all of a sudden you find out that it actually means something totally different than what you originally thought.
Yeah, no. Language is tricky. And then reading the book, and I'm a military spouse, my husband's active duty in the Army. When he talks to me, half the time I don't know what he's saying, all the different
acronyms
and this and that. Like yesterday, he called something a grip, and I'm literally thinking like, okay, it must grip something, but it's actually relating to like an internet cord. And I was just like, the language, like when she was describing talking to a friend that was in AA, and they were talking about like all the different lingos that they use in like AA meetings. And it's like, this must be how people feel when they hear bookish people talk about TBRs and DNFs and like all these things. They're like, what?
Yeah, every group has their, your little. When I used to work in a restaurant, we had our little shorthand. It's like 86 that, or all these. You'd be like, what does that mean?
Jesus and I have to change how we talk to other people since we're both nurses, and then like we can just talk about our days like normal to each other, and then you realize you have to switch all of your language when you go talk to like just a regular person who doesn't do this all day.
Yeah, there was a lot of to Trump in here, which I don't know. I feel like it was very spread out, and I wish it was more.
That could be our book club follow-up is that Cult of Trump book that you were talking about, Alyssa. That could be like our follow-up.
Yes. Could we have a cultish book club?
I think that the author, now that I'm hearing everybody's opinions, she was not trying to alienate any potential customer. I think that she just stayed within like a level of political alignment, and we're like, you could have went a little off the rails, sis, and like showed us some stuff.
Get juicy, come on.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
She did talk about like one of the big things with the people who tend to lead these cults being like the charismatic leader, and like in addition to the words is how they present it. I think it's when she was talking about Jim Jones in that one, just like how he was so like, he almost was like a preacher, the way he was talking and bringing people in. And like y'all said, it's not just like these dumb, clueless people. It's people at these right times during it was like people who wanted to live in a more peaceful place and with different people of different colors and beliefs. And they were all like, oh, this guy is going to be the one where we can have this really, intertwined community. And they're like, I think she said something I had marked like about idealism. So you're just like, looking for your community, and you're like, well, this person you're saying all the right things and maybe at that right time. And I mean, I still find it hard as a person, me, to be like, see myself getting swept up in that. But I think it's also something with like organized religion. Like, why do you want meaning to life? You want a community of people who are similar, but I myself am not a part of any organized religion, so I still like I get the different aspects, but I still, I guess, find it hard to have sympathy or empathy. Like not empathy, but like I still find it hard. I just don't think I would be like a legit cult. I just don't think I could fall for it. But maybe that's me being ignorant.
No, I get that. Actually,
they haven't found your cult yet. That's what it is.
Most of the organized religions that appear to be very cultish actually have very low conversion rates. It's generational. It's something that they're born into. So the more seclusive ones, the ones that seem very isolated, they are only staying afloat through regeneration. So yeah, it's going to be very hard for you to be like, that doesn't sound right. I live in the real world. I would never do that. But for someone who was born into it, that's all they ever know.
Well, that's what you know. That's what you know. Yeah. I remember watching The Vow, that Nixium HBO special. I remember watching the first couple episodes with my brother because he was staying with me for a little bit. And in the first couple episodes, like everything's hunky dory, right? Like it's this great, wonderful group of people that just want you to love everybody and be happy. And then, everything takes a sex cult turn. But he's watching this and he's like, this doesn't sound so bad. This doesn't sound so bad. And now I'm like, I keep thinking about that. Like as I was reading, I was like, my brother's going to end up in a cult and he's not going to know.
Like, no.
Don't fall for it.
It's also just like all religion in particular exists on a spectrum of control. Like I like the terminology of high control groups because yeah, I mean, to some degree, you add time to any cult and it's going to seem potentially less extreme. But the reality is like, if you are there kind of on the ground when it's getting going, it's easier for people outside looking in to be like, I don't know about this guy, or I mean, well, I don't want to make people mad, but like Joseph Smith, for example, like it's been 150 years. So Mormonism is sort of out of the realm of like strictly cultishness.
Yeah, it's now a religion. I think cults with a distance or cults with a time distance now becomes religion. Unless you're like a sex cult nun family where you have a lot of bad publicity. It depends on how you
the sex cult nun family. Oh my God. But like how much different are they than that the Gothard guy? Like the only difference is where are you doing the sex? Are you doing the sex strictly within your house?
I tell you,
or
I was never
it
more
up
obsessed with sex than when I was a fundamentalist.
Like it's all about the sex. It's just are you doing it with everybody or just your husband? That's
and like
really the
under
difference.
what conditions and like with who and like who what are other people doing with their sex life? Like, yeah, you're obsessed with it because like it's such a huge part of your group's like what makes
you're both sexually assaulting people. And you're both doing bad things to children, right? Both these groups are they're all doing the same really bad stuff. It's just you keep it in the family or you spreading it around.
I mean, people like hold IBLP group and like the Duggars and all of that. I mean, I feel like that's cultish, cult-like very much, and the indoctrination and even just like the part with like afraid to leave or you don't want to leave your community. I think about Anna Duggar, who husband is Josh Duggar, who, if you don't know, was charged with convicted of receiving and possessing child CSM. And she was holding his hand on the way to court every day, and she still apparently visits him all the time. And it's just like, but I mean, that's all she knows. She grew up in that. Her parents were really strict. She married into.
But she's also like undereducated on purpose. She's has how many children at this point?
6
Where is she going? Like, this is what she knows. Like, this is her support system. She doesn't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
That's why you keep them dumb. Keep people dumb, and then you can control them. That's why
there's a running joke in our chat where I usually blame 2 events for like everything that we deal with in our lives, and that's either Martin Luther nailing the 95 Thesis to the church door and the conversion of the Bible into English. And like for me, those 2 events was one, now we can read the Bible in our own way. And two, the Catholic Church doesn't have it all figured out. So like, let's do it ourselves. And from there, we have all these different interpretations of the Bible. And the Catholic Church was more about piety. So if you were someone that was like hardly suppressing your sexuality, and now you have your own English version of the Bible, you might start to interpret it in a way where sex is actually a healthy thing. And so we always joke about it that like that was the pinnacle of like, not everybody's like, well, this means this to me. So me and all my friends, we're going to go live on a commune and we're going to do it our way. And it starts from there.
There's a TikTok dance cult.
I knew that there's like a cult commune that's been on TikTok, but I haven't heard of a dance cult.
Oh, I have missed that.
Like, can they not stop dancing?
Never.
One thing I don't really understand is being in a cult that doesn't have a commune, because to be amongst like outside civilians and not be, separated, how can you balance what you're being indoctrinated with other people's lives?
The only way you get me in a cult is because I'm a hermit and I would not live with everyone.
Like, this is great.
I think last longer as a commune, or when they have a commune to like go to.
Yeah. Well, the whole going clear, the prison of belief, this idea of like, if you actually have people by the minds, like they regulate themselves, which is true. When I don't want to say that evangelical Christianity is a cult, because I don't think that is true, but I definitely think, all religion is on the spectrum. And I was in groups that I would describe as probably pretty high control. And like, you control your own mind. Like, if you like, that's part of what's so insidious about it, is like you're afraid to think your own thoughts. Like, the thoughts that you have are not even like really your own in a lot of ways, because like you're not even allowed to think about things that are not what you've been told you can think about. So to me, that's the part that's like really wild, is when they can kind of be out and about. And like, in the age of the internet, how are there any Scientologists, for example? Like, how are any of you still in this? But they're like whole ass business people out there.
I mean, how's anybody in an MLM? I mean, there's like millions of accounts just focused on that to say, don't do
the Ponzi schemes. I will never be able to understand.
Because they're boss babes and they're gonna become millionaires.
Well, and the new male version is crypto and NFTs.
Yes, and you have Rakan or whatever his name is, Rakshan or whatever his name. This is all I do with my life. So just,
but
I know all the top MLMers.
The thing with like evangelism today, and I'm talking about like in the modern sense, is so very different from the original objective and narrative. And I feel like now it's this huge umbrella term. It went from just describing a group of separatists to now like so many different denominations of church can fall under this evangelical umbrella. So like, I think that it's time to redefine the definition and like actually go in and figure out what evangelical looks like today, because it's no longer the original concept from like 1910. It's very different now.
Yeah.
Yes. I am trying to find that part in the book where she mentioned, was it Walter? She mentioned that
the Walter Cronkite thing, the thing you said to me.
Yeah, kind of already indoctrinated from like people, newscasters on TV. And she was talking about like Walter Cronkite's voice and how we associate that with the voice of God. And I was like, ooh, because when I think the voice of God, I think Morgan Freeman.
So she was saying like we're already indoctrinated into like following old white men, because like, think about Walter Cronkite, you hear him on the news. And I was like, to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Jess is like, this bullshit. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna take that for the team over here.
She said, over the centuries, we've been primed to believe that the sound of a Jim Jones type voice communicates an innate power and capability, that it sounds like the voice of God. In fact, during the heyday of television broadcasting, there was a known style of delivery labeled the voice of God, which applied to the deep, booming, exaggerated baritones of newscasters like Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow. It doesn't take much analysis to notice that the voices of history's most destructive cult leaders largely fit this description. That's because when a white man speaks confidently in public about big topics like God and government, many listeners are likely to listen by default, to hear the deep pitch in standard English dialect and trust it without questioning. And I'm like,
no matter how bad his concealer is, cough, Tucker Carlson cough.
Oh God, it's so terrible, sir. Nobody can color correct for you on this show.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, and the running joke among people that have known me since I was a little kid is they're always teasing me about, because my mom always had AM radio on, and she always had on like the right wing crazy people. So like I grew up just listening to Rush Limbaugh and like who's the Family Guy, Focus on the Family Guy. Okay, all of that crap was like, and it's still like she'll still listen to it to this day, and it's maybe that's why when I read that part I was like, oh fuck yeah, like we do kind of listen to them because that was my life.
Yeah.
They hear these people from birth.
It applies to some.
It's Morgan Freeman for me, or
But
Samuel
Morgan Freeman
L.
is
if God is
God.
mad. If it's a
Morgan
guy,
Freeman is
Samuel L.
God.
Jackson.
But she also talks about as long as someone is white, male, and telling us to pay attention, we'll follow. And what did they say? They talked about like Ted Bundy, and I'm always floored when people always reference back to, oh, he was so attractive. And I'm like, was he?
Where was it? Where was it?
Maybe for the time, I didn't see it. But said even she mentioned the dude who did Fire Festival, Billy McFarland, Donald Trump, and Jim Jones, and I'm like, I know, like we obviously last month read, or in January read.
Trump doesn't sound charismatic.
I know his voice isn't a deep baritone, so I don't.
If you're going to use that, I would put that on Obama because he's the orator, right? He's the one who sounds really good and he does pacing and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that anyone's following Trump because of the way that he talks.
Yeah, that's not his speaking.
It's just his ideals, and they want to.
Let's not put him in that charismatic.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think people follow Trump for
other.
Yeah. For a lot of very insidious reasons.
We're gonna read the book. We're gonna read the book.
Yeah.
The Trump cult one.
Trump cult.
I read Jesus and John Wayne, and I think that explains a little bit of how we got to Trump.
Oh, 1000%. And
actually, that one. So
I recommend.
I need
kind
to
of
read
like
that
we were
one.
talking about for Cultish. If people like Jesus and John Wayne, the OG is American and Fundamentalism in American Culture by George Marsden. This is definitely very academic, but it's sort of like the late 19th century, early 20th century origins of then how you get to Jesus and John Wayne. But yeah, anyway, all that to say. Jesus and John Wayne's been getting love lately, which makes me happy. But then I'm like, go back and read George. George was like doing it originally.
But I want to read that because and I know she was being broad, but I was like, I want a book talking about really like getting into religion and the different things, because there's so many similarities with, obviously, you have your charismatic leaders, these preachers who are usually very charismatic and like booming voices can make you feel like you're the only one or very close to you. And then you also, certain religions have certain rules, and like someone mentioned, it's been years, but they still feel like they fall back into habits or feel like they shouldn't do something even though they've been outside of the church for years. So I'm like, religion, and I mean all of them have their thing.
I was going to respond to that comment about the cults being more rampant in Christianity. Cults have a negative connotation today, but they just used to mean separatist, which is back to when I said that the Bible was printed in a bunch of languages and a bunch of different versions, so people interpret it in different ways. So these are just separate groups of people who interpret the Bible in different ways. And I don't think that there is as many versions of the Quran as there is of the Christian Bible. So this is a huge reason why we have so many different denominations or separatist groups or cults. All of these terms kind of mean the same thing, which is people just interpreting their idea or the theology of the Bible in a different way. Like, for example, going to church on a Sunday versus a Saturday. It just depends on that verse in the Bible about whether or not you see the Roman clock as the end of the day or the Jewish clock at the end of the day. That determines if you're going to go to church on Sunday or Saturday. I think it's because of all the different interpretations of the Bible and all the different languages and all the different ways that you can read it and what you take away from it.
But Islam does have has heterodox elements of it. I think it's just not particular. I mean, I think specifically in America, right? Like Christianity is still the dominant, at least like cultural religion for us. So I think we may not be as aware of it. But like, for instance, when I was in Turkey, there's a lot of what I would describe as like folk religion versions of Islam, apparently in Turkey, like what are described as syncretic versions of Islam that might incorporate like earlier like more pagan kind of traditions from that region in with Islam, but like I didn't know that until I was there. So I think, but I agree with you, Monet. I think like because the Quran has like one version and it only like there's more control over the actual text and like the interpretation, it doesn't lend itself maybe as well to that. But like
Is there
all
only one?
religions. What?
Is there only one version of the Quran?
Technically, and if somebody is Islamic, they should certainly like.
Yeah, I would like to know that because I know there's
Respond to
over
this.
1,000 versions of the Bible.
Yeah,
So
but like I think in Islam, the Quran itself is considered like the original language is considered to be holy, so you're not really supposed to translate it, is my understanding. So, you know, that like eliminates a layer of
okay.
interpretation that happens because all translations are interpretations.
Yeah. And there was a comment that mentioned earlier that America seems to be more susceptible to the idea of cults, but I think again that goes back to the Quakers and the Puritans and the Pilgrims. All of them came here so that they were free to interpret their Bible in their own way, and it continues to happen even today. So it's not in our Constitution, it's not in our founding document, but it was already on our soil, and even if we don't acknowledge it, it was still happening. That's the thing about American history, is that there's the mainstream and then there's like the underlying American history that contributes to the mainstream, but nobody ever really acknowledges it. And I think America wants to be so secular that we try so hard not to talk about religion. And so it seems as though religion isn't a major influence in our country when really it is.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Do you think we're trying to? I feel like I have the opposite view, that America tries to be a Christian nation more than secular.
I think that like the Christian like evangelicals or like the Christian movement is always trying to influence the government, but the government itself is trying really hard to appear to be secular. So I think there's this constant battle, which is why Trump's presidency is going to be talked about for a really, really long time, because that is the clash between whether we're going to end up being secular or we're going to end up being evangelical or like a Protestant type country.
A theocracy.
That bothered me so much. Those pictures of his little prayer sessions in there. I'm like, please go to hell, sir. But
you were cheating on your pregnant wife with a sex worker. Like, miss me
So
with your
many
society.
Hey, don't you understand? It's okay. Jesus said it was fine. Okay.
You just can't be queer. That's it. So everything else is fine. When she was talking about, I feel like when she was talking about like Soul Cycle, did she mention CrossFit?
She did CrossFit in there.
Which, you know, it's like, what's the joke? It's like, who's gonna I forgot. It was something about CrossFit and vegans, like who's gonna tell you which one they are first or something like that. But I get what she was saying about the language, because you know they have WODs and AMRAP. Like I know CrossFit lingo, and then Soul Cycle. I know I never taken a class, but I remember hearing about it a lot, like on Instagram and stuff. But I was just like, if those things can be considered cult-ish, then I feel like any group. I don't know. I just was like, where's the? I think she talks about that as there's no hard line. It's hard to like. There's no like this stops being cultish and then this starts. I think that also is bothering me, because I'm like, what is not cult-ish, or what doesn't have some elements of being?
That's why I said we're all in a cult.
Yeah, I think that was her whole point of the book, is to let people know, like, don't just get too cocky and think that you would never join a cult, because a lot of things are cultish.
Yeah.
And so like the line is blurry.
Yeah.
Cult adjacent.
Yeah, American mythos, I would say, is kind of the civic cult of being American, right? Like the indoctrination into we are the best. Like the fact that we say the Pledge of Allegiance, most other countries think is.
Do you know, I never said that growing up, and it's so weird to me, because I didn't realize how everybody does that apparently in school, and we never did that.
Really?
In any of
we
my
had
but I went to private school, so like
so did I. But I had to say,
did you go to like a religious
Pledge
school?
of Allegiance, the pledge, Christian pledge, and then a pledge to the Bible.
I didn't even know a Christian pledge was a thing until like this year. So
Yeah.
I don't even know how I
Texas
know
had
the
its
Pledge
own
of
pledge.
Allegiance.
Yeah.
Texas has its own pledge?
Yeah,
That
you say it
shouldn't
in
surprise
school.
me. That shouldn't
It's
surprise
not shocking at all, is it?
No,
No,
that
that should
checks
not
out.
surprise me
Nice.
at all.
I watched this, and it is the lady. She's got some hair. It's very interesting.
Listen,
This-
she's my neighbor. Like it's that church
Like,
is
literally?
like not literally, but like 10 miles away from
I
here.
was like,
I mean,
gossip, let's go.
that's where her church is. Oh my
Yeah.
god!
it's like in Nashville. And yeah, like then you could get into the whole like weight loss as a cult. That's a whole other thing.
Doesn't she talk about that? Because I feel like I always get really annoyed when I'm in the break room having lunch because I work in a predominantly female area, and all I hear about is like, well, I can't eat that, and I can't do this, and I can't do this, and and I'm on this diet, and I'm on that. I'm like, do we have anything else to talk about with each other? Like, what did you do today? Like, I don't
I
want to
didn't
hear
hear
about.
pledge until right now. Also,
I
Yeah,
pledge
me either.
allegiance. Oh, what is it? Oh, dude, I feel I'm a bad Christian. I don't remember it anymore. I remember that the song we sang after we pledged it was "Onward, Christian Soldiers."
Oh God.
But I remember the Bible is I pledge allegiance to the Bible and to his word, for his kingdom it stands. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm blending the two of them. What is it? Sorry,
That-
I'll
I
have to
need to
look
look
up the
that
words.
up,
But
yeah.
then we would sing, thy word is a light unto my feet after we said that pledge.
I went to
Wow.
Bible
It's
camp, and there was a
deep.
lot of singing, a lot of weird
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
singing.
There's a lot of weird Jesus
They're
singing.
like,
A lot
"Isn't
of weird
Jesus
Jesus singing is a
camp?"
pretty good
I
summation of
went to
chapel
Jesus camp.
for my life. Yeah.
I'm good. Jesus
Jesus
and I are fine. Like I put in my time. I'm fine.
I have to.
I'm done now.
Yeah, I was like fitness, new religion, and then I just enjoyed listening to the MLM things because I've had literally those word for word messages in my inbox like, hey girl, I know we haven't talked in all this long time. Like they literally use the same script and like, do you want to, what is it, make a full-time income from part-time
work. But as military wives, do you guys get that all the time? Like, is it really like this? Like on base, everybody's hawking, I don't know, Arbonne and like trying to get
I'm gonna
you
be
in.
very
I
frank
mean,
with you.
some-
My experience as a Black military wife is not the experience of everybody else. So I can only speak as a Black woman.
I also feel like most of these women there's a lot of white women in MLMs.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It is. And it's very MLMs are just so predatory to, well, specifically women, especially stay-at-home wives, especially women who just had children. It is so gross.
Well, especially because it's
crazy.
playing on a genuine economic gap, right?
Mhm.
Like the whole thing is that it is so unaffordable to have a family in 2022. It's so difficult for to raise children and to be able to afford them, and women who are trying to stay at home, if that's what they want to be able to do, it is difficult to not have that second income coming in. So like to me, part of it is so insidious because it's like a production, like it's a result of like a corrupt capitalist society that like doesn't give families the resources they need to be able to, like, if you want kids, you have to make it affordable for people to have them.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And that's
they're
actually my
like-
favorite part of Cultish is the chapter where she talks about how the Protestant Reformation and the slogans like a good day's work and a hard day's work rewarded, like that is sowing the seeds of our capitalism and what it came to be. You think that you have to work hard, work yourself to the bone, and it's not necessarily the money that you get that makes you feel rewarded. It's the hard work of just the motions of work, not the reward, but just the work itself.
It's the hustle culture. It's the idea that if you are resting on your laurels, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Hustle,
How dare you? You can sleep when you die. No, I want to sleep now.
I saw a TikTok this morning from somebody, I have no idea who it was, but it just was going through my feed, and this guy was talking about how now's the time. Oh, you sent me this, the Office Space guy, Jess. The guy is like, be lazy now. This is the time to be lazy. And like, I really
do the bare minimum at work.
I really hope that this is where we're at and that things start to shift a little bit here, because the way we work is just unhealthy. It is not.
Yeah. And it's all like, you need a side hustle, and why aren't
Yeah.
you turning that into, and it's like, one doesn't need to, like, and I've thought about that, and obviously, like, I do BookTube, but like the need to monetize everything you do.
Aspect
It's
of
like,
your life.
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
tough.
It's
If
such
you're
a
good at
struggle.
something, even if you're not good, if you can do it, sell it. If
Yep.
you can bake a cake, you
Mhm.
need to start selling cake slices.
Yep.
If you can crochet, you need to start selling blankets. It's like we monetize.
And that's the fun
just
thing.
do it for enjoyment.
When I knit
Yeah.
something, everybody, especially and I used to knit a lot more, everybody would be like, you should sell that. Do you know how it's not a sustainable business to sell a handmade item? It's not.
No.
That's so much
would make
time.
like
I'm
cents
surprised
on the
Etsy's still
hour.
going.
Yeah, they seem to be thriving, but I realized one thing that in the book that she did touch on, but like I realized I need like an entire book on QAnon, and
Yes.
because I was like, I need this to keep going, because that was towards the end. I was like, no, I need.
Have you seen the
more.
Netflix or the HBO documentary on it?
No.
What's it called?
What's
I
that?
forget what it's called. It's not.
Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
I saw a
I'll
very
try to
short
find it. What is it?
Vice
Just a second.
documentary on it, and I was like, I need more.
Because I know, like, I've heard of, was it
Into the
maintenance
Storm.
phase, the
Into the
wellness
Storm.
to
Yeah.
QAnon pipeline? Was that maintenance phase, or was that?
She should have did the Twitter. She should have did the cult of Twitter, because, or like Reddit. Reddit would have been a really great chapter.
Reddit scares
Reddit
me.
is deep. Into the Storm.
Reddit
Okay.
scares me.
Twitter scares me
use
too a
it
little bit. But
I don't even click on
occasionally.
Reddit. If I'm searching for something and Reddit comes up, I skip. I go to like the Quora. I'll take them. Yahoo Answers. Anything. I'm not clicking on Reddit.
I go on
clicking
Reddit.
on it.
I follow like anti-funding Reddit
Yeah.
like subthreads, and like maybe one or two other ones, but I go to only specific, like I don't go, I'm like, I'm only
But you
going
can
to
go
this.
down a rabbit hole on Reddit and end up
Yeah.
Just
But I like anti-MLM Reddit. I like
Yeah.
some of the funny ones, like Fellow Kids Reddit. That's a pretty funny one.
Mercy.
But
I
yeah.
used to follow Am I the Asshole, but then I started being like,
Yes.
I don't think all of these are real. Y'all are putting up some ridiculous scenarios. I don't know.
They're still
So I stopped
entertaining.
Okay, well, I'm gonna watch Into the Storm. Perfect Sunday night.
It's a
Thank you.
little, I think it's not the best documentary I've ever seen, but it's very
Mhm.
interesting. Like, I mean, the content is very interesting.
Because I'm just like very interested. And I think she touches a little bit like anti-vaxxers in the pandemic, and just
Say hi
really
to
that touches on that wellness, how those people went from like being in the health space, the wellness space, to this anti-vaxxer, to then this QAnon. And I'm like, that is one of the most confusing things to me. And I'm like, need to dive deeper into that, because I'm still so befuddled at what they really are. But I don't really want to Google it.
It's
because
it's such a weird thing. I was watching this. I was like in COVID ICU with my patient spinning on their machine, watching Savannah Marie. It's like really late at night. Do this do this episode on this. Oh, I think it was doTERRA had one of the oil companies had this like special meeting of all these like doctors that are in doTERRA talking about all the products from doTERRA that they use to not get COVID. And I'm like sitting there bathed in COVID, like, the fuck? How do these people still have licenses? Like, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy and it's infuriating that like this. It's you can't stop it.
He's talking about their like buzzwords, like deep state, mainstream media paradigm shift. I remember seeing so many people. I don't remember. It might have been on Bookstagram. There was an account who was like, I don't follow the mainstream media, and I only watch credible news sources. And of course, it was like Candace Owens, and I was like, okay, that's credible. And it just, yeah, the QAnon thing, I'm just floored. I was like, give me more of this, because y'all, I truly don't get
when
it.
you say it out loud, how does it not sound ridiculous? That like there's messages that you're encoding from like a tweet.
And weren't they like said they were going to somewhere because some JF Kennedy was coming back or something. I'm like, y'all really went to this? I don't know. Oh my God, no. I thought they were blocked from TikTok.
Oh, but they still use it because when you report stuff to TikTok, it's a person who reviews it. So if they don't see things as violating the whatever the code of conduct is, they'll just let it go. So that's why like most of the anti-millennials have you like mass report like everything on someone's channel so they can see.
I've never seen anyone call Fox News liberal. Now that is a sentence I thought I'd never
that is terrifying, and I have heard
here we go. They went to Dallas expecting JFK Jr. to return. I was like, people really, and they were out there, and I'm like, y'all believe this, but y'all don't believe in it. I can't. Just, and I guess that's the power. Whoever who started QAnon? Do you know? Like, who started QAnon? Is there a person or just like
me? It was me, Jess. I did it.
My toxic trait is listening to the other side just to see like what they're saying, and it makes my head hurt. I can't listen to Fox News for more than 10 minutes. I come down with a migraine. I literally can't.
No, I don't tried.
I'm like, okay, let me listen to what Ben Shapiro is saying. Let me listen to what Candace Owens is saying. And I get 5 minutes in and I'm just, my eyes twitching. I'm like, there's no sense here. There's no logic here. What are we doing?
I tried to read a book and I'm going to tell you about it when we get off this live show. But just know, I be trying to listen to the other side because I don't want to be so closed-minded. So I'm like, I want to understand where you're coming from. And it's coming from a place out of their ass because I just can't.
No logic.
No. A lot of the time with like the people like the Ben Shapiros of this world who have these big followings and are kind of like charismatic in some way, and so they draw people in, is like they'll start a sentence with something that sounds reasonable, or like maybe you're like, okay, all right, I'll see where this goes, and by the time he ends the sentence, you're like, where the fuck did you just take me? Like, no.
Coleman Hughes.
With who?
Coleman Hughes. He's a black guy, but like he argues with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he doesn't like Ibram X. Kendi. Like he's very opposite in opinion. And like when he starts talking, I think he went to Harvard or something like that. And I'm like, okay, he's intelligent. And then right at the end, I'd be like, you lost me. You almost had me. But he has a GoFundMe right now where he wants to my computer skipped. Coleman has a GoFundMe where he wants to have a public debate with Ibram X. Kendi. And I've seen a lot of white people like donating to the GoFundMe. And I'm just like, just to see two male Negroes argue about racism in 2022. What? I don't want to see that. If I could report the GoFundMe, I would take it down.
Because sometimes
you can report it.
They'll start out with like, you're like, okay, you did say something that's a fact, and then, but it doesn't, there's no period at the end of that sentence. Then they go into it. I'm like, no. That literally doesn't make any sense. And it's usually at the gym. I swear it's always on Fox News. I'm like, who's controlling these TVs?
The gym is always on Fox News.
I'll look and I'm just like, flabbergasted at what has come scrolling across that screen. I just don't undernd. Okay, I'm about to
very Uncle Ruckus. Very Uncle Ruckus.
Yes, Uncle Ruckus. Yes. Ooh, the two person
back up there. Tracy was saying that it's like Scooby-Doo clues. So my recent somewhat of a side note, but on this topic. TikTok is convinced it knows that I'm an ex-Fundy, but it also, for some reason, thinks I'm an ex-Mormon. So I've been served a lot of ex-Mormon content, and I'm like, it's become my new Scientology in terms of like, I'm so interested in it. I'm like watching Mormon Stories podcasts and like going deep. But apparently, one of the things they were talking about, have you guys seen that story about the Daybells, the woman who killed her kids?
Lori Daybell and Chad?
Crazy.
Yes.
Okay, can you explain for the two over here?
Yeah, we don't know.
So basically there's this like very extreme, and this ties into QAnon. Well, that's where I'm going. But there's this very extreme version of like alt-right Mormonism that believes that like Jesus is about to come back. Like it's like the prepper side of Mormonism, and it's like very alt-right, very like Warren Jeffs kind of sometimes, like, you know, polygamy, but also like this particular version, this woman killed her husband and then married this guy who was like big in that movement, and then they ended up killing her kids because she became convinced that they were zombies and that like she had to kill them so that they could be restored or something. It's wild. I'll try to find the link. There's like a Bailey Sarian episode on it that was very.
She have a mental disorder that's not being
No, it's
taken care of.
I don't
because
think
that
they-
sounds.
It's
Did they have they done a psychological evaluation? Because so her kids, I forgot how they got
something that would
reported,
manifest some schizophrenia.
but
I don't know.
No,
There's like a
because
whole group of them though who think this.
he had his wife killed, and they
Yeah.
were already planning their wedding before he had his wife killed, and then they got married and they went to Hawaii. There was something where somebody reported that they hadn't heard. I don't know if it was a kid's school or something. And
The
it was
kids'
like
grandparents are like,
Yeah,
we've not talked to our grandson in weeks, and like she won't let us talk to him. And he was like adopted, so they were not like, they were more likely to be critical, basically.
Yeah.
I
and
am
then-
now just glad I got
yeah.
divorced.
They
and not
went on
murdered.
like honeymoon in
Yeah.
Hawaii, and they basically were like had to show proof of life, and they gave them all
Couldn't.
this extra time, like that they were like, okay, well, you've got till this date, and they finally like went to her house, and then like, the kids were nowhere, and she's like, oh, well, they're somewhere else, and da 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 da.
And they eventually found the kids on his property. And yeah, sorry, it was she had her brother kill her husband, to clarify. Because that's better.
And then her brother
Anyway,
died.
all that to say, part of what has been interesting is like I was watching a Mormon Stories podcast, like talking about the connections of Mormonism to that movement. And like I guess the QAnon stuff, part of why it's so palatable to certain and like once they said this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally true of evangelicalism too, not just Mormonism, but like you're trained to think, like to look for messages and everything. Like you're so taught to see everything as like revelation. So the QAnon stuff is really appealing if that is kind of like how you've been brought up, is to think of everything as a clue or as a code. I think the QAnon stuff like plays into extreme religious movements where that's a part of your sort of like scriptural revelation teachings, where oh, I found this like random piece of paper on the street and it says this, like that's a sign. Like if you're constantly looking for that just in life, I could see definitely that the QAnon stuff might be like more palatable to your sort of sensibilities of meaning.
You can latch on to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. But
yeah.
You guys are making me scared for the future. Really.
Oh, you weren't already?
I
don't know what scares me more, QAnon, the survivalist people, the doomsdayers. They just seem to get more drastic and dramatic every year that comes. Yeah.
Oprah is the top bad guy in Chad Daybell's beliefs. I was not aware of that.
What? What did Oprah do?
Listen, I guess she's a zombie of some kind.
Oh dear. Oh gosh. I've been scarred. I thought we were lizard people. It depends, I guess. I guess it depends. But yeah, that case was infuriating because of just how much time and like benefit of the doubt they were giving her to like present the. I was so mad waiting.
I don't think that I don't know anything about the case, but like in general, other than what you guys just told us, in general, I don't think that people suspect mothers of killing their children.
Yeah.
It just goes against what we believe a woman would do.
But they do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
I remember when I was deep in the Illuminati. I was like,
is Illuminati really a thing though? I thought it was all a joke.
It's some people are serious about it. I just think it's a weird conspiracy theory, but like,
yeah, I think Freemasons, you have a valid argument with that, but I don't know about Illuminati. Secret societies, though, America loves a secret society.
We do love a good secret society.
We love a secret society, and I also think that people want to believe that things are more in control than they are, because like, I don't know, I used to do contracting or like consulting for the Department of Defense, and like that was enough for me to be like, oh, okay, I don't believe conspiracies. Like, all of those departments are run just by like normal ass people. And I think that is scary when you really accept that. Like, when you really think about the fact that people who are in charge of like our nuclear codes and stuff are just like normal ass people. Isn't that terrifying? Would you want just your normal like manager of a Denny's or whatever? Like they're all really the same, right? Like, I think in our
Maybe
minds,
not
we're
the Denny's
oh,
manager. Like,
well, just like I don't mean to disparage Denny's manager.
no,
I just think
great
that
at
we kind of
managing a
build up in
Denny's.
our
Maybe they
minds, like,
shouldn't have the nuclear codes.
yeah, I just think that we build up in our minds like, oh, like they're all in control and they're really, you know, well coordinated and all of that. And I'm like, I just don't think that's the case. Like, I think that you're giving people in power way
National
too much
treasure.
credit. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's not national treasure level coordination happening.
Yeah. Oh, some of the things I've heard, I'm like,
Tom
Come on
Hanks
in.
is not evil. Come on.
He's America's dad.
The hatred for Hillary Clinton by evangelicals is like so passionate.
It's
wild. It's so like deep. I think that as much as like the liberals hate Trump, the hatred for Hillary Clinton is just it's fascinating. It's really fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still talking about her now. It's like she didn't
she really
run
was like, I don't know if she was the Antichrist. I don't know what she represented. She must have been, what's the lady name before Eve? The one that got kicked out of the garden? Lilith. Hillary Clinton must be like Lilith because they truly hate her.
That's where the Democratic Party screwed up, is they should never have put they needed to find something else, because we didn't need two polarizing people. Nothing good was going to come out of that. You needed somebody to bring...
because they like Sarah Palin, but hate Hillary Clinton. And so it's not the fact that she's a woman.
I can't.
She's the wrong type of woman.
I can't explain crazy, Monet.
You know, emails and such. It like, yeah.
Someone should write a book about that.
I'm waiting.
Write a book about.
It doesn't make.
Hillary
I just want a president that's under 60. I mean, not to be ageist, but I'm just saying.
Right? I mean, yeah. Well, the Hillary hate thing, I read an interesting article about how that really started in Arkansas in the 80s. There was like a narrative at the time that like really, yeah, it's been going on a lot. That and Pelosi. Also, can I just say, I don't love either of these people. It's not like I'm like ride or die for either of these people, but like the amount of just visceral hatred towards them is pretty wild when you actually look at like, well, also the fact that they're basically conservative in the scheme of like world politics. Like, it is.
It doesn't make any sense how much. Like,
I never was a fan. Like, I wasn't like, again, I'm not oh my God, I love Hillary. But like, people really truly hate her. It almost made me feel bad. Like, damn, let me like her because y'all really hate her.
It's like, why are you making me like this woman? I don't want to like her, but
I hate what I have to take up for people I don't like. But like, it almost became a religion.
Almost every voting we've had recently has been like just trying to pick somebody.
Hatred for her goes back to like her husband's presidency. Like, I think they were having a hard time really getting Bill Clinton to be painted in a terrible light. So they just started attacking her for the sake of her husband. But then that hatred has morphed into something live. Like,
we don't like strong women that are actually succcisul. Like, I think they're okay with Sarah Palin because she ultimately wasn't that successful.
But it's Hillary Clinton, I think,
and she said
should be remembered in history as a resilient woman, because knowing how deep the hatred for her runs, and she ran for president twice. It's like she's like, you're not gonna just make me ashamed. I'm not going anywhere. And it's like, girl, they're throwing tomatoes. Like, you don't care.
I love that part of like Amy Poehler's version of her on SNL of just like, you cannot defeat me. Like, no matter how much you like try to shame me, I will.
Hillary Clinton is resilient as hell. She is determined.
Give her props.
Yes. I want to read a book or watch a documentary about like why the hatred for her runs so very, very deep. But
it started in Arkansas, and it was like very much the religious right of like, how dare because she actually wanted to like do policy stuff and not just be like, oh, I'm the governor's wife. Like she
Mhm.
actually had like things she was trying to work on, and it was sort of like, how dare you? Like actually like know your place, basically.
Well, most of the time, the first wives, they have like a pet project and that's about it. And you
Mhm.
sort of stay in your little lane
she
of
wanted to be
entertaining and do your
active.
pet project and don't
Yeah.
get too out of your box, and everything will be fine.
I just, yeah. Oh my gosh.
I know that Michelle
It's-
Obama's really hated, but like
We should be so lucky
Hillary
to
has
have
more
her.
hatred, and so it's ironic that in a country as the one we have, that the hatred runs deeper for the white.
It's
Yeah.
like it's different. It's coded differently, I feel like.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Like I think the hatred for Hillary is more visceral. And I don't know if it's because it's like white conservatives who are like, how dare this white woman like not know her place? Like we're trying to keep her on this pedestal. Versus, I guess maybe for Michelle Obama, it's just like, well, we're racist anyway, so like we were always not going to
Gotcha.
like her.
We
I
already
don't know.
expected it.
I know
Yeah.
that the evangelicals didn't like Clinton after the Monica Lewinsky situation, but I don't know how they voted before. Like, I don't know if they supported him from the beginning, but I know they hated him after that little infidelity scandal. So,
And again, like I don't like Bill Clinton. It makes me very annoyed that I have to like
I have to defend him.
William J. Clinton
Yeah.
plays a mean saxophone, or at least he used to. That was always my favorite fact about him.
It's like it forces you to like say something nice because the mob is out here with fire
Yeah.
sticks, and it's like, dang.
It's like don't
You're like, I don't like
yeah.
him, but dang, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, it's
is-
like those TikToks that go off about like, I don't see you guys out here like riding hard for Biden. Like, where is your support for your president? And all of anybody who voted for Biden is like, look, I don't like Biden either, but like,
He had a purpose.
what did you want me
Stop
to
the
do?
bleed.
Like,
That was his only job, was stop the bleed. I didn't
Yeah.
expect him
Yes.
to do anything.
it's like
That-
I don't have
that's
a
all he
cult like
doing.
devotion to my the
Try
person
not
I
to.
vote for.
Try not to get us blown up. That's all I need
He
to
ain't
do.
doing much else.
I feel like both
Hello,
sides
Miss-
of Democrats and Republicans are very extreme, and I'm just in the middle. Like, can we get a third option? I beg of thee.
We need
I
multiple
beg of
parties.
thee.
It is absolutely
I'm
insane that
sick
there's
of
only
the
2 of
dual
them.
party. The 2-party system is trash because
It's
one
the fact
party
that
will
we
just be
do
like,
have other parties,
no.
but they don't raise enough money. They don't
No.
raise enough money to like be able to promote themselves. But it's like,
Mhm.
please, can we all collectively, like the new generation, my generation, can we
First
all
of all,
come together
can I
and
have
say,
Michelle's arms? Because I
honestly,
have flabby arms and I will take Michelle's
I-
arms.
but the problem with, I think the whole issue is that to become a presidential nominee, you have to raise money because to become one, you always have to sell out to a corporation to back you to get enough money. That is not like, how can you ever be a normal person and get to a place like who just wants to legitimately make change? You have to raise millions of dollars. You should not have to raise money to become the president. That doesn't make any sense to me. I
Well,
don't
but that's
like
like
it.
across the board. Like, I mean, at all levels of government. I don't know.
there's a lawsuit, I can't remember the name of it because I suck, but it went to the Supreme Court. There used to be a cap on how much money you could raise for a campaign, a presidential campaign, and they lifted it, which means that now it's the richest person who's going to win. Like, I think that we should have kept the cap of how much money you can actually throw behind a candidate, because now it's a battle for the rich.
What America has taught me over the last 38 years of me living on this planet is that we need limits and we need restraints. We need
age,
stuff.
we need year limits for like supreme. Don't get me started on these.
Right?
We need term limits. We need
Can we get term like that
caps.
seems like such a reasonable measure we
Yes.
could take.
I'm sorry,
It's just like straight up
Clarence.
term limits.
You don't need to sit up here till you die. I need you out because
You
you're the
can't
worst.
do surgery. I feel like I've said this on lives before. You cannot do surgery at 80 years old with your like shaky hands. Why can you sit and make laws?
When the world has
Citizens
changed.
United, thank
fast.
you so much for that comment. That's the name
Yeah.
of the Supreme Court case where they were like, you can raise as much money as you want. And I was just like,
Well,
why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you do
So
that?
dumb.
They were already raising millions of dollars to promote their campaign, and now they can go up to the billions and the trillions. And it's
All
like,
I'm gonna say is that throughout history, when like the rich have this much power, like you know what follows from that, especially in a country
Nothing good.
where we insist on arming everyone. So like they'll hit a tipping point. I don't know when that will be, but they'll push us too far
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true.
Age cap, please.
Remember
But
when we were talking about
presidents
cult?
are,
Yeah,
I'm
talking
gonna say this:
about
our presidents
America,
are elected when
the
they're
biggest
very
cult.
old, and so like they can't, like they wouldn't be in
American.
power for 20 years like Putin. But the
Yeah.
Supreme Court justice will have more power for a longer amount of time than even our presidents. Our
Yeah.
presidents will never be able to sit for 3 terms because they're all 79 when they get in there. But then you have a 40-year-old Supreme Court justice that's going to shape our future for 45 years. Like they don't even retire; they literally just die, and that sounds very sad, but they
Literally.
don't retire.
No, but they don't.
God.
Well, a couple didn't. Somebody retired
Kennedy
recently.
retired. Breyer just
Yeah.
retired. Some of them
But-
retire, but some of them just
but you know,
literally
They just
Clarence-
go until they
until
die.
they die.
What's his name? Clarence Tom, whatever. He died. He's not gonna retire. I can't stand him.
The fact that he replaced Thurgood Marshall, that's
Disgusting.
That you don't deserve
But
that.
the new, I can't think of her name, but the new woman who's been nominated, and Tucker
she sounds
Carlson, like,
great.
what are her SAT? Boy, bye.
Sit
Shut
down.
up,
Could you
Tucker.
even answer a question on the LSAT? Bye. You didn't ask somebody else
Yeah.
that. Let's get all the other justices' LSAT scores then.
But what's crazy is that like during the election, I remember Fox News like kind of turned on Trump, and like everybody was like protesting Fox News, and it's like, what did y'all come kumbaya, apologize, and now y'all are all good? Like what happened? Because I thought y'all were
Because there
upset at
isn't,
Fox.
because it's not real allegiancy. This is all a business. Even the news is a business, so it's wherever they're gonna get the money from. They just want to get their bag, just like
I do
everybody
love
else.
Katie Porter and
Katie
her
Porter and
whiteboard.
her whiteboard.
She comes to serve. She's
She-
like, do you know
oh.
the answer to this question? I'll tell you. You're
Yeah.
wrong.
He's like, what? There's always a dude, and they're always like prevaricating, like, oh, I don't know. And she's just like, actually, boo, 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 boo. Okay, then. And
Yeah,
by the end of
you
it,
do
you're
know
just
because
like,
you said this
okay.
on Tuesday in 2008 at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Katie Porter.
I love that whiteboard.
Yeah.
Woo! Katie Porter is great, but
I
It's
think
just-
AOC
yeah.
would be a hard sell. I think that
AOC is
she's got a
like
lot of
the
hate.
Bernie Sanders. She's too
She's got a lot of hate.
Well, that's the
liberal.
thing. Like, it cracks me up, especially like having lived in Canada for a few years and like seeing what their version of conservative is versus ours. Like, the Democrats are really center right in terms of like world politics. American politics are just so conservative that they count as liberal, but I'm like, AOC and Bernie are pretty like center
They're pretty
left.
average.
Like, I mean, they're not that extreme. It's just like, oh, you mean you want everybody to have like, I don't know, universal health care?
ha,
What a
please.
crazy liberal notion. Like, how
Bernie is
Don't
not
livable
the radical that
wage?
they think he is.
Yeah.
How
What's a
dare you
livable
want people to
wage?
make a livable wage? Please.
Yeah. Wild.
I mean, in a country that's as big as ours, where everything is so different, like because you go from state to state, it's crazy. If you took the number that is my salary in New York and you moved it to Tennessee, I'd be rolling. But
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm like just sucking wind every month when I'm done paying all my bills.
I know.
Every
Well, that's why we've got all these we've got people from all over the place coming to Tennessee right now. It's like a meme. Like half of Nashville is from California now.
Yeah, the comment about the 9 people having the power, that was my point. That like the Supreme Court
Mhm.
has like essentially the final, they're the hammer drop on
Yeah.
what is all of our laws.
But that's
I'm
why
like, we
everyone
need-
gets so upset when you need to fill a new spot. That's why everyone gets all their panties in a twist, because that is
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
matters.
It rarely happens. Yeah, so they confuse me too. Shoot.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I just sit and I'm like, these things don't seem complicated to me. And yet we don't have, they're like, why aren't millennials having babies? What?
Because we can't
Like,
afford them.
you know, look
They
at all
can't
of these
afford
things.
them. And like, have you seen the world?
Yeah.
Jimmy
And
Carter's
just all
another
these-
president that the evangelicals hate too. They really
Which
hate
is
him.
ironic because he's the first president to identify as born again.
He's evangelical, correct? Or
Jimmy
was, but
Carter
they
was
like-
evangelical.
Oh,
All I
And
really know
they
about
said,
Jimmy Carter is put on a sweater, and that's what I know.
Another book recommendation, Apostles of Reason by Molly Worthen, talks about how it says the crisis of authority in American evangelicalism. But one of the most interesting sections of this talks about how Reagan was able to get evangelicals to turn against Jimmy Carter, which is amazing considering that he was an evangelical and like Reagan was a
Wow.
divorced Hollywood star. So like, yeah, anyway.
I need a whole documentary on people that evangelicals hate, and that would be Hillary Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and maybe a little Richard Nixon there at the end.
Pelosi. I hate Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, everyone hates it. I feel like everyone hates Nancy Pelosi, and that might just be because I grew up in a family where everybody hated Nancy Pelosi. So like everywhere was just like, I hate her. So
Well,
I just
I've
assume
asked
that no one
people
likes
who are
her.
older than me why they hate her so much, and like none of them can really it's like
They
I just
just
think that
hate
they
her.
don't like her vibe, basically, is what it boils down to. And I'm like, I don't like some of her
But I mean,
policies.
sometimes you just look at someone and you're like, I don't fucking like you.
Yeah, I think that's
She's really old though, but I think like what's that guy name? The really old one. He looks like what's his name? He has like a turtle look about him.
The turtle.
Mitch
guy.
McConnell.
You're talking about Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell looks.
He does look like a turtle
sitting there. He looks like a corpse. How is
he alive?
How are you alive?
Someone said, why do we keep losing great people, Betty White? How's Mitch McConnell still alive?
He reminds me of that little thing in that SpongeBob episode that just sits in the wheelchair, you know, the little worm thing. I'm just like, how old is Mitch
he looks like a
McConnell?
thumb.
Yes,
he looks like he needs to have the oxygen tank following behind. You are old.
I hate this man.
And he just keeps going. I don't understand.
80. He looks 95.
And he is loud. He's old and loud. How do you have the wind range to do this?
Evil lives.
Oh, Naomi! Yes, evil lives. The evil lives on forever.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody knew I was talking about Mitch McConnell. I'm like the old one, but
when you said he looked like a turtle, I was like, oh yeah.
I wanted to call him Brian McAuliffe, and I was like, that is not his name.
He's definitely been reanimated. They brought that corpse back from the dead for sure.
He does have like a little turtle look about him. So
yeah, he looks like he's got his little turtle head like popping out of the shell.
What
talk about lizard people?
The nuisance. Yeah. I hate it.
But no,
also I love how we started talking about cults and now we're just talking about politics.
Well,
which are kind of
we were talking about QAnon. To be fair, we did swing there from QAnon, but I do need more QAnon breakdown because that's like the new. I feel like we're watching this cult be just like evolve and grow, and I'm like, I need to know. I think
it's falling apart right now because like all their predictions didn't come to pass. So it's like branching off into like even more extreme versions.
But that happens that happened with like Heaven's Gate. How many times or was it Heaven's Gate? Anyway, one of the doomsday ones. And like they were constantly predicting the end of the world.
Yeah. Even after 2012, they said that was going to be the end of the world, and they just
moved the needle. They just
move it on.
They're like, oh, we were wrong. I literally remember
we recalculated and it's fine.
About the end of the world in 2012.
The leader of Sex Cult None estimated the end of the world too, and then said that God got busy or something like that.
Give me some more time. I'm working on my crochet right now. I'll be back with you guys here in a few years.
We're just trying to put it off. But if we talk about in reference to cultish, because I'm making the words wrong. The people who are very much about America, like, oh, you're teaching people to hate America and blah blah blah. Is it nationalism that is like the word? Because they're very much it's very
American exceptionalism.
Because they're like, America's the best, we do everything the best, this is the American dream, all that. And I mean, it's very cult-like, and those are a lot of the people who are mad right now because they don't have their leader, Donald Trump, who is finally saying the quiet part loud that they wanted to say all these years. So I mean, politics does relate to this because they're very culty.
I am flag stuff. Oh, sorry, Monica.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just gonna I am currently a grad student in international affairs, so it's all like politics or policies on a global stage. American exceptionalism has our country by the throat. We're in a chokehold by American exceptionalism, and it's this idea that America is like this country on a hill, this Mount Zion, it's the country or like the nation of God. And this idea makes us and other people think that we can't do any wrong. We're always the savior. We're the ones to come in and fight communism, fight dictatorship, fight all these things. And that leads Like us not acknowledging that like we are infallible, we aren't infallible, we can make mistakes, is how we make so many mistakes.
Yeah.
No,
They want to ignore the past, and then like when they're like "Make America Great Again," and it's like, when
was it great? When was it great?
And
were a
with all
white
the
man in
CRT
1950?
stuff, yeah, with all the CRT, it's like you just don't want history to be taught, and it's like, well, we don't need to. When people give examples of like other countries who are doing, because what is America? They're like 30th or 40th or something worldwide for like healthcare. Like you're the number one in the world. Apparently the best country, but still, your healthcare is down here.
I think we spend the most money and we have the poorest health outcomes.
We're number one in the world for our military, and that brings me back to the idea of like we try to be secular, but we have militarized Christianity. Like Christian militarism is a thing, and so now the nation of God, the nation on the hill, have the number one army in the world, and that is where our patriotism comes from. That's where our American exceptionalism, nationalism comes from. It's centered around our military and not anything else. So we will always be military first.
White men. And because I'm like, it goes back to that whole like, why should we have like socialism or like socialized healthcare, all these things? You pull yourself up by your bootstraps and stuff. And it's like all these things that you keep denying and don't want to do are reasons why all these other things. Why are millennials quitting their jobs? Why aren't millennials having children? Why aren't people buying houses?
Because we aren't Protestant Reformation people.
But pulling myself up by my bootstraps isn't going to pay for or do my open heart surgery to save my life. Like that isn't how that works. Pulling myself up on my bootstraps might get my ass out the door to go try to find a job, but it's not gonna like fix my insides. Like it only goes so far, and it cannot be applied to everything.
Yeah. And now I know Alyssa, since she's a nurse, and we were talking about
and she's angry all the time.
Crisis and like how many people are trying to leave the field. And then I just before this was recording a video with people who are librarians and teachers and talking about all the banned books, and they were talking about how many teachers are leaving. And it's like all of these things, all these systems, they need people to work. And if they're leaving, you're gonna have a collapse of the healthcare system, the education system. Then what are you gonna do? How are you gonna be in the best of the world? You don't have nobody to take care of people or educate
because
people.
We will still have M16s, okay? We will still be military first.
Yep. They'll be like, well, we've got all of these pew, but nobody to take care of anybody in the hospital. So we're great.
I mean, that's one way to take care of people in the hospital.
The capitalism requires all of us to buy into American exceptionalism. And that is true. American exceptionalism is how we race to put a man on the moon before Russia. That's American exceptionalism for you.
Did we really need people on the moon? Like, I'm sorry, I'm still going.
We had to prove that we were exceptional. So yes, we spent billions of dollars to do that.
Right.
I'm okay being mediocre if I can pay my bills and I can, generally be healthy.
You just said like Antichrist words.
I'm all right being mediocre.
America being okay with being mediocre? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No.
I just don't know how we're so exceptional if like a young black man can't walk down the street without risking his life. How are we
manifest destiny? Because predetermination.
Okay, shoot your cultish language at me, Monet.
The city on a hill.
The city on a hill. That's what it's the city on the hill. We're the new Mount Zion, baby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm like, how can I need some money. I'm trying to live in a lake by Switzerland or something.
I mean, I might have to get married again and just use Jesus' Spanish passport and get the hell out of here.
And go. I need that eraser from that Doodlebop commercial so I can just erase American patriotism right quick so we can actually get some stuff done. Thank you. Privatization of our space programs is really funny. It's really funny because our government wanted to be so exceptional that they paid for it the first time. But now that they have no one to compete with because we're winning, now anybody else, you guys can do that yourself if you want to go to the stars. We only did it because
not terminating.
Everything is so infuriating. Well, I thought this. I was like, well, this might be 20 minutes, going to be real short, but it's got to be all riled up. And now, not to be annoying, Mara, but can you tell me those book titles one more time so I can write them down? And I'm going to for myself, and then I'm going to put them in the description. So I had Jesus and John Wayne.
Yes. Sex Cult Nun.
Sex Cult Nun. Yes, read that book.
Sex Cult Nun.
We got Jesus and John Wayne by Kristen Kobes-Dumez. We got Apostles of Reason by Molly Worthen. The Crisis of Authority in American Evangelicalism, which gets to what you were talking about in terms of like who has authority if everybody can interpret the Bible, and then how that ends up playing out. And then Fundamentalism in American Culture by George Marsden.
And then the QAnon
academic press
documentary.
Oh, and then in the private chat, Jess, I put that Bailey Sarian video about the day bells.
Oh, golly.
And I'm gonna recommend Red Lip Theology, which is still about church, but from a black woman's perspective. So if you
I've heard a lot
into the
about
evangelical, yeah, it's really good. I really recommend.
I haven't heard of that.
Theology.
You know?
I saw that on Twitter. I want to read that.
It's really good. So this one is very different because she goes through this awakening in church and realizes how toxic church can be, especially the Black church. But instead of her breaking away from church, she chooses to be a Christian in her own way. So if you're trying to figure out how to still walk with God, still be associated with the church without being under the patriarchy and the toxicness of it, this is a perfect example of someone who woke up and still chose God. It's a great book.
Yeah, I like that. Wonderful. Any other? Those are the, because I was gonna ask like any other books you would recommend from.
And our Trump book. What was our Trump book?
Oh yeah. Steve Hassan, whatever that was, The Cult of Trump.
Are we gonna read that?
We should read that and reconvene.
We probably should read that.
Yeah,
and
we
reconvene
should.
for
The
another
Cult
angry
of Trump,
discussion.
right?
The Cult of Trump.
Is that already out?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it came out it was when he was still in office, I think.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. The Cult of Trump.
Reading assignment.
Lemon Oreos. They came back in stock. I got 2 packs. What's up? Heather, I guess your videos were short. Shoot. Okay, it's been church up in here.
Yeah, we've been solving the world's ills. I'm also going to Libby. Oh, I'm also, just as a side recommendation, I'm reading The Laziness Does Not Exist right now. And it's really, really good. Highly recommended.
Let me just write that down for myself.
I mean,
The
I'm
Cult
happy
of
to
Trump,
be
a
lazy.
leading cult
I
expert.
am responding to Book Lady Reed's comment. I, in February, read a whole bunch of books on like evangelical Christianity, which is centered white, and I am now reading books about Black churches because I've come to the conclusion that white Christ and Black Jesus are 2 different people, and I am determined to do a comparison. Yeah, I'm determined to do a comparison.
What books I need?
You know what? I just got.
No, I was just saying because I've been like, I have seen a lot of like ex-evangelical or deconstructing stuff on like TikTok, but it is primarily white people. And I found one, but I've been looking for more people who are specifically leaving the Black church because it's very different, just like the culture of. And so I need that. Those books.
Yeah, I have one that I just got in the mail yesterday. I'll send you a picture. But I think church is very different for us because for Black people, a lot of our civil rights movement originated in the church. It was the only place that we could organize or come together without being under suspicion or without like the threat of an attack. So a lot of our progress throughout slavery and Jim Crow and racism, segregation, all that things, it originated in the Black church. So it's harder for us to really break away from it. Because I mean, even Martin Luther King was a minister. Like that is the origins of so many of our movements, and so I think it's harder for Black women or just Black people in general to be like, forget church, because what would we be without it today? Really?
I heard somebody talking about about red lip theology, and correct me since you've actually read it, but I have not. Doesn't she say something about it's about the community that is formed throughout the church that is the thing that she doesn't want to lose? But there's the other aspects that she wants to leave behind.
So her mother was a teen mom. She got pregnant really young and without being married. And so the church shamed her a lot. She had to apologize for getting pregnant young. And the father was never in her life, but he was allowed to like lead choir. Like he was still active in the church, but she bared all the shame. And she did it for her daughter because she was she had no community. She had nowhere else to raise her daughter and to feel protected. So she was raised in church because her mom felt like she needed that hope as a single Black mother, and her mother suffered the brunt of the shame. And for her, it was just like, I don't know if I like this. Like, I love being in church. She even has a degree in theology. She's an ordained minister herself. But to see the treatment of her mother by the Black church, and then allowing her father to be a deadbeat, and then telling her she needs to be the one to forgive, she needs to be the one to forget. So like, her experience as a Black person in church is something I feel like all Black people can relate to, because it is very toxic masculinity, really, with men. And
I think
they
all church is very toxically masculine.
Yeah. But like the moment where like her mom had to just get up in front of the church and like bear this shame, and then the father is just like, he got married, he had other kids, he had no blowback from their situation, and she did it all because a single Black woman, where else are you gonna raise your child? So she sent her to church camps, church programs, all like she needed that community. You need it.
Yeah.
Oh, church camp.
That was like always the topic of, I don't know if debate, like
church
I don't
was
know if
also
the right
important
verb
in the
there
Underground
is.
Railroad.
But like in grad school, we would talk a lot about how like Black American religion is so evangelical in terms of a lot of its like ways of being, but like in general, Black Christians don't think of themselves as evangelical unless they go to a white evangelical church. And like, why is that separation there? I mean, the answer is racism, but it is
why is that so often the answer?
It's always the answer. But anyway, like that was always like
America.
A discussion of kind of like the different valence of religion in Black American experience, and like how to bridge that divide. And I'm like, well, I think until the white church is willing to not be racist like that, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, why should the Black church come to the white church, or why should there be a merging if like
I don't know if that is possible in terms of like what Jesus represents as an ideology, because like the idea of Christ warrior or being warrior for Christ, I never heard that from Black churches. Christ is the liberator. He's someone to walk with you until you get to better days. There's not this justification of war for Jesus, war for Christ, war for God. It's more of like a liberator, freer, emancipator. So like Jesus represents something entirely different. And so while the theologies and the way that we live, the conservatism, the traditionalism, fundamentalism, that all looks the same. But when we picture Jesus, he's not a warrior for Black people. So
Jesus the Liberator by John Sabrina. And then
they cross you were going to church.
Yeah, The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone. Like this, I often think of this as the book that led me out of Christianity because it really helped me see how empty my version of Jesus was. Because he's talking about like the Black American experience, identifying with Jesus on the cross because Jesus was basically lynched. But anyway, it's a beautiful book, but yeah.
The crucifixion of Jesus, I think, is very prominent in the Black church.
Yeah.
But I think Jesus as like this person who traveled the world and spread the gospel, I think that's more of like an evangelical, like this, spread the not the dominion, sorry, but spread, the gloriness that is God. But for us, it's the death of him. And the brutalities that he suffered that the Black church always focuses on, and like remaining faithful, remaining patient, and being a believer to the end. So I want to do a discussion on my channel, but I'm still reading the books for this, but this is just like where my mind is right now.
Yeah. What was the Jesus the Liberator? Was that the first one?
Liberator.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, just to warn, this is like some pretty heavy theology. So like, I don't know, just like know that if you want to get into this, but Jesus the Liberator by John Sabrino is a historical theological reading of Jesus of Nazareth. And this is coming from the South American. So like liberation theology really comes out of South American Catholicism, but then it gets incorporated into like feminist theology and Black theology and like queer theology. This is sort of like a groundbreaking vein of theological thought of like Jesus as co-sufferer, basically.
I think that me and Mara could do a good discussion on this question right here, colonialism and how it ties into Christ, because we've read the book.
Yes. And then The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone. And then like, honestly, Martin Luther King's theology is like probably my favorite theology anyone's ever done. I know we talk about him as like civil rights, but like just to our current buddy Reed, he talks a lot about Nietzsche and like critiques Nietzsche pretty directly. Yeah, anyway.
So many things I need to read. So little time.
I know.
I was curious to think what Jesus is going to think if all these books start showing up. He's going to be like, shit, are you getting religious on me?
You're like the opposite.
Yeah, it's like, no, I want to study more of it to know why I'm not.
I'm going to cite all of the Bible camp is why I'm not.
Yes, we're now awaiting this live discussion between you two. Thank you.
Yes. I will have popcorn.
We will, hey, theology. I've not nerded out about theology in a long time, nor have I had the inclination, but I feel like we could have a good conversation about it. It's not like, me in the middle of an existential crisis. I feel like maybe I have enough distance now to be like, let's have a real conversation about this.
I believe it.
I think the irony is that like you spread Christianity, you spread the gospel, but you can't force the interpretation. Like, you know what I'm saying? My ancestors were forced into Christianity, but Jesus still represents something different for us. So you can feed it, but how they digest it, you have no control over.
Yeah. Turns out you can't like get into someone's mind and like make them believe exactly what you want them to.
I mean, you can try.
With democracy. We
can
democracy.
Try.
You can try.
And they do.
But this has been fun. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yes. So, Cultish.
Remember where we started?
And I put the Cult of Trump on hold at the library. So.
Why library doesn't have it? And I don't understand. This is a liberal state.
This is a great, obviously, a gateway into nonfiction, and now a jumping point. Now I have a list of like 10 books that I want to read.
Yes.
If it makes you feel better, Jesus has arrived. So
Jesus.
For those of you who are waiting for him, he's here
my
now.
home
Jesus. If you want to get your feet wet, you want to test the water,
he's more like
in the water.
He's more like Jesus the Krabby than like, Jesus the Liberator.
A little samples.
By liberator, you mean death. Okay, go away, Jesus.
Script has the Cult of Trump. Okay.
Script has it?
Okay.
Even better.
Let's use my script. Is it an audiobook or is it ebook?
It's probably an audio.
Okay.
It's an audio and e.
Okay.
They're both.
Yes, he's hungry.
But thank you everybody for joining our discussion and our derailment into our segue. We just took an exit to politics and religion, but
it's more pro women than any. I mean, we don't like to. This is America. We're not pro women.
No,
America.
All right.
I was gonna say, you know what I hate is how the people that are all like America, they like wear their flag on everything, and aren't we not supposed to do that? Like, are we not supposed to put your flag? Yeah. So what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing, buddy? Even Jesus knows, and he's from Spain. Like, he just shouted it from behind me. Anyway.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jess, for having us.